Welcome to the Real Estate Majlis podcast, where we dive into the latest real estate insights and trends. Whether you are a seasoned investor or a first-time buyer, our podcast is here to provide valuable information and expert advice. This episode is powered by Bayut, the UAE's leading property platform and proud member of the Dubizo Group. Whether you're buying, selling, or renting, Bayut connects you with real estate solutions tailored to your needs using innovative tools like TrueCheck, TrueEstimate, TrueBroker, and Bayut GPT. From finding your next home to advertising your listings with confidence, Bayut offers real photos, real prices, and real properties, helping you make informed decisions in the market. Here we are, another brand new episode at the Real Estate Majlis podcast. And who do we have here today, Mahmoud?
Wow, we have Jad Antoun, who is the CEO of Huspy.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you with us today.
I'm excited too.
We have a lot of questions for you.
I'm ready.
And it's fun because we had Huspy in the show really in the beginning, and we had our friend Sawan here giving us some insights to the mortgage market, but I think it's been now a year and we need some updates to where we are. So Jad, let's start to explaining to our viewers what's the situation in the mortgage market at the moment and what 2025 looks like.
So maybe I'll start by giving a recap of 2024. So I think 2024, as the whole industry, as a whole, mortgages had records, so had historical records. And mainly this is a back of the growth of the sector as a whole, but also higher penetration of transactions being mortgage versus cash. So if you look a bit at the mature market, let's say like Europe or the US, the penetration of mortgages roughly it's at 70-80%. So usually it's a mortgage buyer. And now we see a trend over the past, let's say 5 years of this number going north or going close into these numbers. So I remember roughly around 10 years ago, this number was around 20%. Now roughly it's around 40-50. And then you see a shift going into 70-80%. So you have a shift in customer behavior that's happening mainly because of higher education happening in the market and a better process and all of that, but also the amount of inventory available in the market. So that's a bit on what's happening in 2024. Obviously 2025 you have a drop in the federal interest rate coming in, which means a drop in pricing, so the monthly payment on the customer will go down. And the second thing is other than the growth that's happening in the secondary market and the customer behavior, you start having a lot of primary units that are coming into the market. So also you have a lot of the handovers through you guys or other people also moving in. So hopefully you're going to see a bigger growth, but also will be a great time for the customer to go and take a mortgage.
What we see in terms of the Dubai real estate market is that we have a lot of buyers who buy now off-plan rather than ready properties. And for off-plan, I think it's more challenging to get mortgage and funding. So how do you see this trend moving on 2025?
The way we think about it in Huspy is you have two factors. You have the macro factor of the UAE as a general, and then you have the real estate factor as in the UAE. So obviously the UAE you have a growth in the whole country, so either on GDP on as a whole, or which translates also into the real estate transactions. So a lot of people moving in, staying here, and etc., which is great for the for the country. The second thing, if you look a bit at some of the prime locations in the country, so let's say the IFC area, the Palm area, downtown, Marina, GLT, all of that, you start having a big shortage in land. So and pricing 101s, you have shortage in supply or limited inventory, and then you have a high demand mainly because of people wanting to buy in the country or people moving into the UAE. So you have pricing either stabilizing or going up. That's how we see it. When you go outside of the prime location, the biggest advice that we give for customers to follow a quality developer, right? Because there's always something new that pops up, and the good thing in the UAE, you have a lot of quality developers happening into the country that market something that will deliver in 3-4 years, but also deliver on what they market, which is very important for the stability of the market.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the mortgage process, because we still have a lot of people that are not necessarily educated on how to go about it. There's a lot of information in the market. Should I go to the bank? Should I use a mortgage broker? So what is the advantage for someone to use someone like Huspy, for example, or anyone that can offer a multi-bank panel of options? What's the difference?
The easiest way to understand the value prop is pricing and convenience. That's the main example. So here all the banks in the country compete on pricing to go and deploy, and what we do for the customer, we make sure that they're getting the best product in the market. And sometimes when you get a different product, let's say if someone's pitching you a 4.2% versus a 4.4, maybe on the year it doesn't sound much, it sounds the same, but because of the compounding effect and the value of the transaction, then the monthly payments, you have a big gap, right? That we do. So that's the best thing. We make sure that you're paying the lowest monthly, and two, we do everything for you, so you don't have to do anything, and it's all free of charge.
Because
it's a no-brainer for
and the
customer.
process still not very sustainable, right? You still have to print a lot of paper and fill up a lot of form. Do you think criteria when banks are assessing from your point of view the customer, do you think they are matching what other international markets? You think here in the UAE it's a little bit different?
Yeah, so what we do in Huspy, just on the process, everything that is customer and meaning filling out the applications and all of that, we're actually streamlining it. So I'm going to give you a small example with us. We have something that we call the client vault that we send to the client. They put their documents into that, and automatically we extract all the information available on that, and we deploy it on all applications. So you don't have to fill anything, right, on that, which gives a higher customer experience. So that what we call from customer into Huspy. Then there's the other aspect that is Huspy to the lender on that. If you want to streamline that process, I think there's an open banking aspect that's not present into the country. So there's a layer that needs to be built that I think there's a couple of companies trying to attempt to do that. But if you manage to crack that process, then I think you'll be good to go. The good thing is Huspy deals with that process. So we do that work for the customers. So if you look from a customer standpoint, the customer experience should be drastically better than you going offline. We have a manual aspect that we have to go a bit on the back and forth, but hopefully with time it's gonna get there. In Europe, in the US, you have that layer that you can build up on.
But in terms of fees and what is included on the process, because you talked about interest rates. So interest rates are going down, but there are other fees, the banks, processing fees, registration of the mortgage fee. So what's the compounding effect when somebody's buying a property in terms of percentage of money wise they need to also put aside?
So there's one-off fees that I think if you, and the way we think about it between the land apartment fees and the brokerage fees that usually are, and some of the fees that you mentioned, you're going to end up being at 46%, somewhere around those numbers. That's a bit the limit, but also a part of the value prop that we do in the company is anything that's a variable on fees, we make sure that we take into consideration on pricing. There's things that are fixed, for example, the land apartment fee. You cannot do anything on that other than if the developer is discounting it or something like that. So there's some things that are fixed that we take for granted, and anything that's variable, we embed into the pricing that we give them.
And what a lot of banks are doing now, they are also allowing people to finance the registration fees and the broker fees as well. Talk a little bit about that.
If you think about the main reason is basically the deployment of capital. So to deploy more lending into the industry, because usually whenever someone wants to go and buy a house, liquidity or cash flow is a big problem initially. So there's a barrier to entry for you to go in. So the more you finance any fees, the higher you're going to have people coming into the markets, either being the mortgage amount or some of the fees and etc. So these are some of the incentives that the banks are doing today.
In terms of innovation and technology, with rising property prices, how do you think innovation and technology can help us with helping middle income people getting the opportunity to buy real estate here?
I personally think that the UAE market is more transparent than people think. I think that the land department is doing an incredible job. I think there's few players in the market that are also doing a good job and doing that. And even if you go and compare to other countries abroad who are much older than the UAE, I think you have a level of transparency that's much higher, and I truly believe so. Maybe in the US you have the MLS, that's the highest bar of transparency out there, but maybe if you put the MLS a bit on the side, then I think the UAE is up there compared to other countries. So the biggest advice that I can give in is get a good company on your side. You need a good person, but also a good company that lives by the value. With us, we focus mainly on pricing and convenience. These are the two main variables that we play under, and make sure that there's a track record.
Again, on the technology part, we've seen blockchain technologies, AI. Do you think these technologies have an impact on the mortgage process in terms of making it easier, pricing?
Yeah, maybe I'll focus on the AI aspect. So just for you to know a bit on the technology side, and Huspy, we have multiple products, but we have two core products. I'm going to focus on the mortgage one, since that's the topic of the conversation. So we have a product for mortgages that's mainly a B2B product for mortgage brokers. So that uses our tech stack, and we'll have a consumer facing also aspect. We've actually been developing AI for the past year and a half right now. We have something live in the market. It's been I would say 3-4 months, give or take, that I think is the best AI technology in the industry, in my humble opinion. And the way I think about the use case of AI is in general, and in mortgages also. You have the first layer that I think is going to become commoditized, mainly the chatbots and the recommendations and all of that. Where AI becomes really interesting is when you have a combination of recommendation plus action, and also market data plus proprietary data. If you match all of them, then you have something that could add a lot of value. So I'm going to give you a small example. Today, you can go in and put a voice note or chat in any language that you want, and you say, "Hi, I'm a salaried person of X, Y, and Z, and I'm looking for a product that's or I'm looking for a mortgage of $1 million dirhams for 20 years, the cheapest in the market, and I prefer to work with X, Y, and Z in banks without other banks." Like, you put any variables that you want that are objective and subjective, and in less than 5 seconds we give you the best recommendation, and you continue the full flow from there. So you don't even have to go and click on any button for you to get to that experience.
So one of the things that a lot of the customers, they miss when they sign the contract on a ready property is the valuation clause. What people sometimes miss, that the price they sign the contract is not the price necessarily where the bank will provide you the loan.
The average mortgage in the country is around 1.8 million dirhams. You're deploying $500,000 for a customer. Right?
Yep.
So there's a level of work that has to be done, and I think the work that has to be done is good for the regulation of the market, and to make sure that we have enough liquidity, but not way too much liquidity, and all of that. So I think, yes, the process should be streamlined. I don't think it should be like a matter of a week, right? Yeah. For us to be able to get that. So that's the first thing. The second thing on what Cecilia is saying is that we a part of taking the mortgage is to making sure that we have that we're doing evaluation. Sometimes evaluation is under closing price or over closing price, so it happens, or on par.
Both, yeah.
It happens on both sides, but this is the job of Huspy, or a company like Huspy, to take care of that, assuming you have a good company on your side. So we deal with that.
Yeah. So the valuation pretty much, if it doesn't match, if it goes under, obviously the bank will only lend you based on the valuation, right?
That is correct.
Do you see any trends where the valuation is coming in average the same? Is it coming a little bit less, or? So
historically, you always had a bigger delta. I think now with what's happening in the UAE and
the data available as well.
Yeah, exactly, and the data available, or the level of transparency that we spoke about a bit, and also the stability of the market, especially in a lot of the neighborhoods and the areas. I think the delta is getting less and less, and I don't think it's a big issue, or as big of an issue as it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, true.
Something like that.
True.
I think the government has done a lot of great work in terms of stabilizing real estate markets, so in terms of policies and regulation. How do you see this, and what kind of gaps do you see in the system that can be worked on and improving the accessibility of buyers?
So I actually think that the system that the government has put in real estate is very sophisticated. So especially given that the whole country is very young, right? So you have a lot of data that's available. If you go to a lot of the European countries, this data is actually not available, and that, so you have a massive advantage. You have a lot of regulation that are in place to protect the consumer, either being escrows, or putting a threshold on how much you can lend, and all of that. So I think all the directions are good. Um, any improvement in the process for me has to come on building a layer on between the lending and the governmental side and the private market, right? On that, which is a bit the open banking layer that we spoke about. Or else, if you don't build that, there's always gonna be a bottleneck in the customer experience that's just impossible for anyone to do. And again, there's a couple of companies trying to attempt on solving that problem, and I think if they do, I think it's gonna be good for I think it's gonna be good for everyone, for the end user, for companies, and all of that.
What would you like people to know before they enter into a mortgage deal?
I think they should understand the monthly payments that they're doing, how much goes to principal, how much goes to interest rate, if they want to pay up the mortgage early, how much they should how much they should pay, and etc. Which for us, we provide that information. So you go from day zero understanding how much you're paying, where is it going through, and if you want to exit early, then how much also you have to pay to do that.
And then you're absolutely right, because sometimes you might feel that the interest rate is very close from bank A from bank B, but they might have completely different deals from a term perspective, and that has a different effect. So you might, sometimes it's better to go with a little higher rate, maybe if the term is longer, as opposed to what the trends are, right?
Exactly, and the way I describe it to people, and if you're taking a small loan, let's say either credit card or a car loan or bank or whatever that is, when the amount is so small, the variable on pricing is very nominal. It doesn't change much. Right? When you're going and borrowing millions, a small delta, and because it's on a 20-year horizon or whatever that is, versus like let's say 2-3 years, the compounding effect is very high. So any changes moves the needle incredibly.
What do we have for international investors? I know it's not very easy compared to residents to get mortgage. So how does your product help international investors?
The difference between lending locally or to resident and to non-res is there's a level of additional risk that the bank is taking, because it's income abroad, and they have to do additional work on compliance and etc. So what the banks do is that they increase the down payment, right? That's happening. But if you look to the exception of that, the process is more or less the same, other than the KYC abroad, which, because you don't have integrations with the ministries and the land departments, then that's the extra work that has to be done. So I would say is the extra verification abroad and also increasing the down payment. Other than that, the process is the same.
But they could get up to what, 50%?
Yeah, I think it's roughly around 40. That's the number that...
Okay. My final question is there anything on the landscape from a mortgage perspective that you think you would like to see change for 2025?
As mentioned, there's a lot of growth happening in the real estate sector in the UAE, both on the real estate side and on the mortgage side, for the reasons that we mentioned, so customer behavior shift and also the inventory available in the market. The good news here is that the banks are incredibly well prepared to take the growth. The banks in the UAE are very, very large, right? And if you look a bit from their balance sheet perspective, I think they can fulfill easily whatever's coming into the market and even more than that. And that is great for
healthy.
Very healthy, right? For the customer. If you have these dynamics and people and you have a real estate market that is responsible, meaning developer building the right product, building with enough frequency but not too much or not too low, that aligns a bit with the vision of the country, I think you'll have an incredible real estate market that's very healthy and will go out to decades, right? Any mistake on other side, then you start having these corrections, right, that you see in the market. So for me, this is the thing that we really monitor in Huspy, and it's a combination of the distribution of the company that gives us a lot of data, but also speaking with people like you guys.
maybe a little bit far from real estate.
Sure.
You're a successful story that is, we always say, Dubai has given a lot of opportunities for people. So you started this company here in Dubai.
Sure.
And you managed to be well known internationally. So what's an advice for people who want to start something here in the UAE?
For me, in general, on entrepreneurship, it's a compounding work. So every day you have to bring your in, you improve 1% every day, and then when you do it over a period of time, then you get something that's working. But there's no magic. It's not like, okay, you build something, it's gonna go viral, and etc. So every day you come in, you work, you build a better product, you build a better operations, you understand the go-to-market in a better place, and etc. So eventually, if you want to go and build a large business, then you have a playbook that's very applicable to that aspect. Obviously, with some localization that usually comes from a comms or marketing perspective, but it's not easy. And some days you feel you're on top of the world. Some days you feel that you're a bit below the ground. So you need to have a lot of mental
strength. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Exactly.
Well, you've done an incredible job, Jad, and I think today, Huspy is one of the biggest in terms of volume of transactions. Of course, correct?
Yes, so we do more transactions than anyone in the country. The business that we have in Spain also, that was launched a year and a half ago, we're market leaders also, and Spain, and for us this is on the back of delivering value to our customers. So either the end user, but also the products that we build for our partners to eventually enable the end user at the end. So
that's great. Thank you, Jad. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure
Thank you,
having you guys,
Pleasure
and I
is
wish all the best in 25 and a lot of success.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jad.
Thank you.